Hello and welcome back to the Forgotten Trails podcast, where we dive deep into legal battles that define the concept of family, custody, and the best interests of children. I'm your host, Damien, and today we're talking about one of the most controversial custody cases in U.S. history, the Baby Richard case. This case, filled with heartbreak, legal complexities, and ethical dilemma, captured national attention in the 1990s. It raised critical questions. Who truly has the right to raise a child? How do we define the best interest of a child? And can the courts really undo bonds built through love and time? Our story begins in Chicago, Illinois in 1991. A baby boy, later called Baby Richard, was born to a mother who was unmarried at the time. She chose to place him up for adoption. Almost immediately after his birth, Baby Richard was placed with a loving adoptive family. For 4 years, this family was the one and only Baby Richard ever knew. They celebrated his first steps, his first words, his birthdays. To them, he wasn't Baby Richard. He was their son. But the story takes a shocking turn when Richard's biological father, who was unaware of the adoption, learns of his son's existence. He hadn't consented to the adoption and believed his parental rights were wrongfully terminated. This sets the stage for a bitter and highly publicized custody battle. The biological father, known as John Doe, to protect his identity, filed a lawsuit seeking custody of Baby Richard. His argument, he never agreed to the adoption, and as the biological parent, he had the fundamental right to raise the child. But the adoptive parents had a different perspective. They argued that removing Richard from the one and only home he ever known would be emotionally devastating and against his best interests. The case wound its way through Illinois courts, with passionate arguments on both sides. At the heart of the legal battle were two fundamental questions. Should the biological father's parental rights take precedent, even though he hadn't been involved in Richard's life until now? Or should the adoptive parents' established bond with Richard carry more weight in determining what was best for him? This wasn't just a custody battle. It was becoming a debate about what defines a parent. In 1995, the Illinois Supreme Court delivered its ruling. In a 5-2 decision, the court sided with the biological father. The majority opinion held that the biological father's parental rights had been improperly terminated and that Richard should be returned to him. But this also warned of emotional harm that this decision might cause. Justice Mary Ann McCrow wrote, "It's inconceivable to me that Richard's best interests were not considered paramount." Despite the adoptive parents' plea to the U.S. Supreme Court, the decision stood. 4-year-old Baby Richard was removed from his only home and his only family he had ever known and placed with his biological father. The fallout from this case was profound. Media coverage was relentless, and the public opinion was deeply divided. Many sympathized with the adoptive parents, arguing that love and stability should outweigh biology. Others supported that the biological father, asserting his parental rights, felt that it was in every way his right to argue that. And what about Baby Richard? His name and identity were forever shielded from the public, but experts expressed concern about the psychological impact of his transition. Child welfare advocates argue that the case exposed a gap in how courts interpret the best interest of the child. This case also led to changes in Illinois' laws. Today, biological fathers have more legal safeguards to prevent situations like this from arising. But the question remains, did the legal system truly serve Baby Richard's best interests? The Baby Richard case is more than just a tragic custody battle. It's a lens through which we can examine larger questions. Should biological ties outweigh emotional bonds in determining custody? How do we balance parental rights with the child's needs for stability and security? And how can the legal system better serve caught in these heart-wrenching disputes? These are questions without an easy answer, but they're critical for shaping the future of family law. As we wrap up this episode, I want to leave you with one thought. What truly makes someone a parent? Is it biology, love, time, or something more? The Baby Richard case challenges us to think deeply about what's best for children, even when the answers are uncomfortable. Thank you for joining me. If you found this episode insightful, please subscribe and leave a rating and share with others. And if you have thoughts or questions about this case or other, feel free to reach out on other social media platforms. Next week, we explore another landmark case, the tragic story of baby Veronica and the Indian Child Welfare Act. Until then, take care. See you on the next one.